Before we get started, Reverend Saul is going to give us a great prayer, right?
Yes, yes. First of all, I welcome our main speaker, Reverend Mary Kay, whom I really enjoyed this afternoon, and also our friends, Frank and Annabelle, that I made recently through webinars. So thank you so much. Welcome, all of you. I'm going to share a very powerful prayer, at least for me, that I have been repeatedly reciting this. It's from the book Chase the Lion by Mark Batterson, based on a story in the Bible he created as the Lion's Chaser's Manifesto. Let me read that. May this be our prayer. Quit living as if the purpose of life is to arrive safely at death. Run to the roar. Set God-sized goals. Pursue God-given passions. Go after a dream that is destined to fail without divine intervention. Stop pointing out problems. Become part of the solution. Stop repeating the past. Start creating the future. Face your fears. Fight for your dreams. Grab opportunity by the mane and don't let go. Live like today is the first day and last day of your life. Burn simple bridges. Blaze new trails. Live for the applause of nail-scarred hands. Don't let what's wrong with you keep you from worshiping what's right with God. Dare to fail. Dare to be different. Quit holding out, quit holding back, quit running away, chase the lion. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to launch some polling here, and I'll introduce our speaker. So please take opportunity to go through the polls if you can all see those. So I'll give you the results later. We found about 50% of our churches right now, it looks like, have received the PPP funding. So please fill that out. Once again, this is a webinar, not a meeting. So it is a little bit, we cannot see you, you can see us. We can see what your sign-in name is. So we can see that Blair Hall there and Bradley's there too. So we appreciate you guys being on and listen to our great speaker today. So I want to introduce somebody who's done a great job at our church and has spoken, probably this is the 5th time that I've had an opportunity to hear her, Reverend Mary Kay Kanahan. She is the pastor at St. John United Methodist Church, which is a joint church, United Methodist and Presbyterian Church, PCUSA, in Columbia, Maryland. She's a lifelong Methodist, raised in Arbutus, UMC, right outside of Baltimore, and grew up in Catonsville. She attended the University of Maryland College Park, so she's a Terp. And Mary Kay lived and worked internationally for several years. She responded to a call to ministry when she returned to the United States and began attending Bethany United Methodist Church in Ellicott City in 1994. She worked on the staff there as coordinator of lay ministries. She served many years at the Baltimore-Washington Conference United Methodist Church Leadership Days, teaching. She's an excellent teacher, and coaching ministry and consulting with many local pastors and churches on their stewardship ministries. You're going to see a little bit of that in just a minute. She was a graduate of our first Financial Leadership Academy, hosted by the Mid-Atlantic United Methodist Foundation. She completed her Master of Divinity degree from Wesley Theological Seminary in 2009, working for a nonprofit, Faith at Work. While in seminary, she served as pastor for spiritual formation at the historic Asbury Church, United Methodist Church in Washington, D.C., and lead pastor for Pleasant Grove in Reisterstown, Maryland. In 2009, she was appointed for community life with Glen Mar UMC. And then in 2013, she was appointed lead pastor for St. John's, where she is now. It's a multicultural ecumenical union church located in Wild Lake Interfaith Center. She lives in Ellicott City, Maryland, and has 2 sons. And we are tickled pink to have Mary Kay Kanahan. Tell us a little more about your church, Mary Kay.
Thank you, Frank. It's great to be back with you all this afternoon. Thank you for that warm welcome. So St. John United is a 53-year-old congregation in the social experimental city of Columbia, Maryland, a city that was designed to be radically inclusive, built on two pillars of social justice, racial and economic equality. And so it was always a diverse community. This congregation was formed to be a witness to inclusive and progressive visionaries and ideals by being an ecumenical union of the Presbyterian USA denomination and United Methodism. So right now we are a congregation worshiping about 100. We have probably more people involved in the church who actually aren't members, but that's a growing trend. When I came to St. John 7 years ago, we had about 60 people in worship, and we were struggling. And this has been a turnaround ministry. So in 6 years, we've nearly doubled our worship attendance. We've made great strides, and I do give thanks and honor to the Financial Leadership Academy of the Mid-Atlantic United Methodist Foundation for the equipping of skills that has helped me to do that. When I first came, we were reliant on up to $30,000 a year of interest from a capital fund. And if you know anything about financial management, that's never a good practice to be drawing down your interest every year to fund your operating budget. And so based on a lot of the things that I've learned, and some of which I'll share here with you today, by creating more of a culture of generosity in the church, we have weaned ourselves now and been away from that dependency for over 3 years. And so our budget has been stabilized and freed and grown. And we have people that pledge and give generously, and we have people giving at all levels because we are inclusive economically as well. And so anyway, we're doing a good job. So I give thanks to the church for trusting me in that leadership. So this is me, St. John United Church in the city of Columbia, Maryland. Today, we're talking about moving beyond stewardship campaigns. I loved in the prayer that Reverend Saw offered that part of it said, stop repeating the past and begin to create the future that you want. And that is what we're doing here today. Moving beyond, right, the repetitive past of creating stewardship campaigns for a season and for a time, and moving more toward having a healthy church where everyone gives what they can, they give generously, cheerfully, all of those wonderful qualities through a year-round concept of stewardship planning. So tonight we're going to talk about how to create a year-round stewardship plan that begins to transform the culture, the attitude, all of the assumptions about generosity in the local church. As you have probably embraced over recent years, many of us have acknowledged that stewardship is holistic. It's not just about money, but it's also not about anything less than money either. And as so, we recognize now that it is our time, our talents, our treasure, all of our gifts, how we share, how we witness, everything. And so it's everything we think, say, and do after we say, I believe. There is no better time than right now to start planning. If it were a new year, I would say great, but I think you can start now to plan for the next 6, 12, and 18 months how you wish to begin shaping the ministry of stewardship and creating a culture of generosity.
Oops, sorry, that was me.
As United Methodists, we certainly think about, the framework of the Wesleyan Quadrilateral, where in the primacy of Scripture, it's always a good idea to find a scriptural basis for your stewardship ministry. In the congregation where I serve, I have embraced for this time the 1 Corinthians passage in chapter 4, verses 1 through 5, that talks about thinking of us in this way: as servants of Christ and stewards of God's mysteries. So this is a sort of non-traditional stewardship ministry passage or scripture, if you will, because it's not one we've probably designed stewardship campaigns and themes around. What I like about it is that the word servant, the Greek origin of that is a word huperetes, and it means, it describes a rower on a ship. You think of the very old ships that had to be powered by layers or decks of people, all doing their part, rowing. They're down in the dark. They are not the navigators, but they are the people that invest all that they are and have as they are steered by someone else. And in this case, it would be that we would be like those workers, like those rowers, where we give all of ourselves as God is leading us. And then, of course, the other part of that, to be a steward of God's mysteries. Steward comes from the Greek word okonimos, which is the major overseer of a household or estate, in charge of others, but also accountable, right, to someone else, to a master. And so we have to do both of those parts. It's a great image of servant leadership. And in that passage, one of the things that I really like that it talks about is the need for stewards to be found foremost trustworthy. And so in that regard, we need to be sensitive leadership, that we can be transparent and vulnerable and authentic, and develop the kind of relationship with people that they can trust. And as we focus on the outcome of our ministries of stewardship, and we say, sort of, so what? Why are we doing all of this? This particular scripture leads us to realize that we need to be loyal and honorable. We need to focus on the common good and make a difference for the whole. And so it takes the focus off of us and keeps us in a servant leader attitude. So you'll find your own scripture that grounds your stewardship ministry, and I urge you to search for that with your leaders, and you'll find something that fits for your local church. So one of the things we recommend, and I learned this actually from the Financial Leadership Academy, was to have a separate stewardship ministry team. And for a long time, we were finance and stewardship in the church. That was our ministry team. And now we actually have some separation there, where people may at times come together and meet and share information for the purposes of a culture of generosity, but they're aware that they have distinct or different functions. We analyzed the last several years of generosity patterns in the church and began to understand the giving patterns, that is, knowing who gave to the church, who gave what amount, how they gave, and to what ministries, if they gave to special funds, or to try to understand passions and motivations and things like that. And then we were intentional about creating recurring giving opportunities in the form of electronic fund transfers, or asking people to add the church to their automatic bill pay option with their local bank. To do online giving, we use a Banco Corporation through the Presbyterian Foundation to do that. And then we also use Givelify, which is a mobile app. And all of that was just in an effort to say, you know, even as we noticed that people were starting to attend church less often, they could still be faithful in making contributions to the mission and ministry of the church. And we felt like the church needed to take responsibility for creating avenues for people to be able to do that. Next. So, one of the things we delved into was creating a year-round plan, and that has been such a shift because the church I was serving had not actually done a stewardship campaign for several years, and so that was a first start. And then after being part of the Financial Leadership Academy and having 3 of my lay ministers in the church also attend so that they could understand some of the concepts that I'm talking about here tonight, we began to try to shift and do things a little differently. So rather than having an intensive time of stewardship in the fall, we began to spread things out through the year. And we did a little bit at a time, you know, starting with things like creating a narrative budget that we could introduce to people at our annual meeting, which we have in January, doing things like creating a giving brochure that would talk to them about how to give in many different ways. We started preaching about stewardship in all of its forms throughout the year and not just for a season. And so creating a year-round plan is something that you will do because you, and in coordination with your lay ministers in the church, know best what will work in your community. So this will be a plan for your church. What's offered here is just a template of suggestions. And remember the 3 big premises about why people give to churches and anyone, that they believe in the mission. So they see, they hear, they experience, they've learned about the impact of changed lives and transformed communities. That they have a relationship with the pastor and the staff. And you'll hear more about that, as I'm going to encourage you to be in relationship and conversation with people in your church. And that the organization demonstrates fiscal responsibility. That's that trustworthy part that the scripture was referring to, right? That we're transparent, we are authentic, we are fully able to answer questions that people give to us. Thank you. So what you're going to see next are a bunch of slides that you could map out month by month throughout the year. Having a first career in public parks and recreation, you will see cute little graphs and themes for each month. And so that's where that comes from. But in January, we begin our year by mailing the year-end giving statements for tax purposes with a cover letter thanking people for their generosity, highlighting what we feel has been an impact of ministry in the past year. Meeting with the stewardship team to plan and design the whole rest of the year, developing themes for each month with personal witnesses in worship. You know, you call them moments for mission or, you know, a testament of some kind. And often you plan that just before the offertory, including stories that can also be sent in writing by electronic newsletter or in the mail to inspire people. It's a good time to review and update your narrative budget for the coming year and mail it to every household with a cover letter to talk about the state of the church and where the church is being called in missional impact for the coming year. So that's how the year can start off. And I encourage you to mail your narrative budget separate from the giving statements so that it really feels like it's a different piece of information. It's not just, you're not just including something with the giving record. Thank you. Next. In February, pastors, drawing on my training as in community organizing, I have benefited from having one-to-one meetings with people in the church who are major donors or those for whom I have seen or heard have made a significant increase in the past year. And it's a time to sit down and to say thank you. I drink a lot of coffee. There's a great little bagel shop. And that's how we do this. And I pick up the tab and thank them, and I find out the story behind their generosity. You've been giving, at this level for so many years. Why is this important to you? And then just listen. And then ask permission if you can take some notes and remember those stories, and because you might want to use them in the future, and you'll hear more about that right here. From those meetings, you might be able to cultivate newsletter articles for the year that are relatable and inspirational. So when you're telling someone's story with permission, how they have lived and what it means for them to live a generous life can inspire others. It's just another, right? And that's part of our stewardship, is witnessing to our life. Do a weekly mission moment at the time of offering as much as you can. February is also a great month. Give a little plug here for the Mid-Atlantic United Methodist Foundation to contact Frank and schedule an endowment or planned giving workshop for mid to late spring. We did this at St. John United. We brought in a local law firm that does estate planning, and so it could give everyone the ins and outs of trusts and wills and all of that. And then we had Frank come in and talk about why the United Methodist Foundation and your local church ought to be included in the consideration for all of that planned and legacy giving. You might want to host a personal finance workshop to equip people with the basics of financial management. I don't know if you know this, but that is perhaps the #1 skill lacking in millennial and younger generations, is a basic knowledge of financial management. And so there are some ministry programs out there that can help you do that, but you could design your own if you have retired financial planning people, even working with like the local university or community college to do something that's very basic with regard to financial management and budgeting is really helpful for folks. And review your gift acceptance policy and your business practices. I'm going to say here in full transparency, one of the things we are doing right now in SJU during this time of the pandemic is we are rigorously auditing and reconciling all of our accounts. And we had some places where we needed to tighten up, especially as we were giving electronically. We found the complications of accounting for fees that are charged and the delay in the time frame in which those transactions take place. And so we have tightened that up, and it's been really good for us too, because we received a PPP grant, and so we wanted to have things in shipshape anyway for that. So it's a good time in February when it's quiet and dark out to really roll up your sleeves and do some of that kind of work. March, continue with your ministry moments in worship during the offering. Send a customized letter. I would say approximately 3, but this season I actually sent 5, and those will be available for your review also. And so I had a customized letter for people who were advance pledgers, meaning that they gave in advance by December 31st, 2019, and some of them paid their pledge in full because they were able. We had people who were up to date with their giving according to their commitment. We have people who do not pledge to the church but give, and so they get a different letter. And we have people who were below their giving, and we have people who had not yet given to the church. And so we had a different letter for all of those people. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, but I think it's been one of the things that has made a difference, because it's not just a template and people feel like you're really writing to them. And some of them, I even take just a second and put a little note at the bottom with my, initials. And I think it makes a difference.
I agree. Yeah.
Take a look at creating a first newsletter feature. Remember those coffee and bagel meetings you had back in February? Feature one of them in your newsletter. Invite people to that financial planning event by the Mid-Atlantic Foundation. Put a link on your website and begin to preach on stewardship. And one of the things you could do, for example, is spotlight a relationship in the community where the church has made a difference. And this was what we did. In the past 2 years, St. John United became a formal partner in the community with our local elementary school. And as such, we send volunteers into the school to work in the classrooms and during lunch and recess. And we have sponsored all the hospitality in the teacher's lounge by equipping the refreshments there. We give money, we buy supplies. Anyway, we do lots of things. And so we invited the leadership, the teachers, and the music department to come to worship. And so we had folks from our elementary school with whom we were cultivating this relationship. I drank a lot of coffee over 5 years to get to this point of partnership. And they talked about how the church has made a difference. Like, we show up on the first day of school every year. We stand on the blacktop multi-purpose court as the children line up, and all of the men of the church do this because this is what the principal wanted. And they clap in and do a kind of a high five arch for all of the children going into school to encourage them off to a new year. And it's amazing what 30 minutes of encouragement does. In fact, today I was just over at Columbia Mall for a peaceful march in opposition to the violence in our nation. And one of the people walking by said, "Hey, Pastor Mary Kay, remember me?" And she was the PTA president 3 years ago when we started to form the partnership. And so we, anyway, and so that's one of the relationships that we celebrate. Remind people of online giving. Okay. In April, you all are getting the rhythm of this, right? So the point is you're going to continue to plan throughout the year, and so that you don't have to get to the fall and be in a panic about not having said anything about stewardship or not encouraged people or celebrated the generosity that has been among you. And so you will see again, you're going to continue your ministry moment. You'll thank people who came to the financial planning workshop. We even had people stand up in the church and say, yes, I included the church in my will. And that was an inspiration to others.
That's awesome.
As we remind them about legacy gifts. Mail everyone a ways of giving brochure for the church as a reminder. So this was something we got questions about in our afternoon meeting. So the ways of giving brochure is something that outlines both the different tools that can be used for giving, like some of that online and electronic giving that we talked about, but it also talked about other opportunities for giving. That is, giving on a weekly basis, giving to special missions, special Sundays or causes or ministries in the church, and legacy giving. An example of this brochure can be found on the Mid-Atlantic Legacy website, and Annabelle's probably going to show that to you at the end of the meeting so you can find it. It's a template, and you can customize it for yourself, for your church, put your own logo and branding and colors into it, and then send it out to people. And so we're equipping people with ways that tell them how they can be generous. Write 5 thank you notes to people who are being consistent in their giving to the church. And it doesn't matter at what level they are giving. What we appreciate is the people who are being consistent, giving regularly, thanking them for being steadfast, right, and trusting in their giving. May continue that. Do another 5 one-on-one meetings for a different purpose, though. Ask folks how the church is making a difference and has made a difference in their lives. And so the purpose here is gathering maybe some witness moments that have something to do with, other than money, right? So believe it or not, this is connected to stewardship. So I have a church member who came into leadership recently from another tradition, and talked about not having been in a small group or study since probably since the time of confirmation, and is now in a small group and has talked about the difference that has made in her faith journey. And as I have heard her talk about this over the past few weeks, to the point of calling me to tell me, right, there's that excitement that she's feeling as she is having, revelations and understandings about God's grace. I'm thinking to myself, there's a story here that we can use, that the whole church will be blessed by. So that's just a simple conversation that you're going to have and make note of. Remind people as we prepare to sometimes go into that downturn in the summer of giving, to keep current with their giving through the summer months. So that is often part of our June letter that goes. And it's not too early to start thinking about the fall, like a stewardship campaign. In June, you're going to send out your second customized set of letters, reminding people to keep up with their summer giving. Do another newsletter article back from those conversations in February. Here's a theme: write 5 more thank you notes, but acknowledge people who are your caring ministers. So whether that's your congregational care team, your Stephen ministers, anyone doing pastoral care or counseling, anyone that's doing that kind of ministry, and thank them, because that's a form of stewardship. That's good.
Okay.
So you all have the plan here. Oh, in July, maybe a time of celebrating family, children ministries, vacation Bible school, things like that. But the other thing to do, if you are fortunate to get your college students home for the summer and come to worship, ask them to talk about how the church prepared them for college, or for where they are in their life. You don't have to ask them what they're doing in campus ministry, because that might not be happening. Campus ministry doesn't reach all of our students, but they should be able to say something about what they learned, how the church impacted them, that has been helpful to them as they have taken these tremendous strides of independence in their college career. And that is impactful for all the folks sitting in the congregation who remember that young adult when they were simply young, and for all of the young people who are looking up to that young adult, thinking about why this time is important in connection with the church. Well, you can just kind of look through that, and you're going to see, let me see, I think September starts to get a little bit more traction with regard to stewardship. October is really a time of emphasis, and I would say one of the things we start to do there is we start talking about big budget changes that might come in October, and we start reworking our narrative budget for the new year. And it's a great time to remind anyone who's required to take a distribution from their IRA that their contribution can go directly to the church as a nonprofit organization at no tax implication to them, no income tax implication for them. And if you know someone who is in a position to do so, have coffee or dinner and invite someone to actually make a significant legacy gift. In November, some of the emphasis around All Saints Sunday has to do with celebrating memorial gifts and legacy gifts. It's a great time when you're remembering the saints to remind people again that they can include the church in their will, or they can make a one-time gift, or they can make a provision that their giving continues for 5 years beyond their death, or things like that. It's also a great time to remind people that maybe you've done any weddings or funerals for in the year outside of the church, that this is a time that they can make a contribution to the church that would allow you to continue that ministry. And it's time to wrap up your targeted campaign. Great. And in December, let's see. Yep, we emphasize the benefits of doing a year-end gift or an advance pledge. And you'll see more about that in the letter that is given to you as an example, that we thank people for their advance pledges that count toward the coming year's budget, but they receive the advantage tax-wise by giving it in the current calendar year by December 31st. And we thank people for helping the church to begin its year on a solid fiscal foundation, and that's what that giving helps us do. And you'll see wording to that effect. Yeah. Some of the things so I'm going to stop here and ask Annabelle if she's gotten any questions or comments in the chat.
I do not see anything at this point, Mary Kay.
Okay, folks, please do, chime in if you would like. This is just some of the things that I have learned. Do some reflection on your own spiritual relationship and theology about money and what it's been like to struggle with that. Create accountability for this plan. This has been a journey for me. The emphasis on stewardship was not always a comfortable area, but little by little we began to make changes. And one of the things that helped me be successful was to intentionally include stewardship and being a leader in this way to the congregation by putting this as a big area of my pastoral goals and objectives. So this is an area that I'm actually evaluated on every year. And I think for me, that accountability has been beneficial. And you can engage a Mid-Atlantic United Methodist Foundation coach like me. That's one of the other things the foundation has done, is equipped people who can work directly with congregations on any number of stewardship matters.
Next slide.
Yeah, I think so. And let me see what I want to talk about here. Don't bear all the burden for stewardship yourself in the preaching. In fact, I would say, branching out and having people talk about, what they've discovered about themselves all on behalf of the church, right? Because they've received these opportunities in connection and relationship with the church, is all a way of affirming stewardship and generosity. Oh, here's a big one. Cultivate friends of and affiliate givers to the church. You know how when you gave one time, when, you know, to an organization, I gave for a 100-year birthday to one of my church members who was an alumni of Howard University. And I'm on everything with Howard University. I get emails, I get phone calls, I get letters in the mail. And, you know, I'm not an alumni of the university, but they consider me a friend because I made a contribution in honor of one of my church members. And so I thought, well, we should be doing that too. So when I do funerals for folks who are outside of the congregation, when I have learned the names and addresses of some of the folks who come irregularly and are not members, and even my parents' high school friends get they do, because they know me. Why do we give? Because we trust the relationship, we know the pastor. So my father's high school friends have said, well, yeah, I mean, we don't think about it, but send us a letter, we'll send you $50. Okay, awesome. And they're happy to do that. So just be creative about that, and don't be, what's the worst that can happen? You know, right. They don't give you anything. So we have relationships with the merchants and businesses in our neighborhood near the church. And so we actually do coupon discounts for congregation members. We hold our small groups in the cafe and bagel shop, and then we give them our big shopping bags, you know, recyclable bags that they can package large orders in or give out at the grocery store that has the church name and logo on. These are all ways. I know it sounds like marketing and promotion, but it's relationship. It's relationship.
Right.
Probably the last part is the expanding opportunities for electronic and digital giving. We were passively promoting that, right, and made it available to people. We told new members about, you know, you can give online, but it was shifting to the pandemic where we're not passing a collection plate anymore that has really impacted us. And so we quickly added Givelify, or you could use Tithely. And we have tripled the number of giving units that are using online giving. So I think not a lot. I mean, I think we're at like in the 20s, like mid 20s or something now. But we had less than 10 that were giving in that way. And this part, be a student of nonprofits. One of the best, it's hard to pick, but one of the best work segments of modules of the Financial Leadership Academy, Frank, was when you all brought in representatives from the local university development office and other nonprofits. And they said things to us like, wow, you all have your major investors and givers right in front of you every single week. That's awesome. You're so fortunate. Here's what we have to do. And then they talked about all these different ways that they had to creatively reach out and talk about the mission of their organization and the lives that were changed. And I thought, and I agree, they were saying to us, you have the chance to do this every week. And so friends, study the best practices of other organizations that you think are doing this very well. And I save letters, for example, from institutions when I look at how they're written and I think, oh, this is effective. Like, this makes me want to contribute to their organization. And I share it with the stewardship team. And of course, pray. We do a lot of praying. This would have been for breaking down. Oh, these next slides are resources for for you. I have someone in the church who I call is an ESP. He's an extra smarty pants person, and he does, corporate consulting, and he loves doing research. And so he's on our investment trustees team, and he did research on philanthropy and giving. And so he came up with this slide, and you can just learn all kinds of information about how people give, why they're motivated to give, where it goes, what time of year, all of that. So then I think there's one more there, like who gives. And there's more statistics. This is related to digital giving, and I actually used this and showed it at a finance and stewardship team meeting because I wanted them to see that we were probably going to have to live in more than one world. We were never going to be completely digitized because we were still going to have some folks that just really want to write a check from a checkbook.
Right.
So lots of details there, and I think I conclude with a little cartoon. There we
Love
go.
it.
You
More
like
Greek.
that?
More Greek.
Yeah, more Greek. There you go. So yeah, this preacher's saying, actually the Greek word for tithe means 25%. So Dr. Sheldon takes advantage of his congregation's lack of knowledge of the Greek language. So just to put a smile on your face. It's been a pleasure. If there's any comments or questions, be glad to take them. In this time.
So I'll start off with one, Mary Kay. What's been the hardest transition for you to get this thing turned around at your church? Obviously, you were able to do it. You doubled the congregation. The giving was great. Was there one thing that really started the ball rolling? Or is that too specific? Or is it a multitude of things?
I think we started very simply, but I do think the beginning of it was the Financial Leadership Academy allowed lay persons to come to one of the workshops.
Get your team together. Okay.
And so it helped bring the level of awareness of importance into more people's minds. So I didn't have to go back and sell it as much to the church because I had 3 respected leaders say, well, yes, we were there. We heard the same thing that Pastor Mary Kay heard, and we're on board with this. I think what helped the most was I had someone who was methodical. And so we looked at, I think the first thing we did was a gift acceptance policy. And that was because, like many churches, we would have folks who took the initiative to give a gift to the church, but they wanted to direct what it was used for. And that wasn't always helpful, but we also didn't know how to say no or do something else with it. And that has radically changed us. We have almost no escrow accounts, no designated funds anymore. Okay. Because if you give to the church, unless we have asked for it specifically for a targeted purpose, it will fund the operations of the church. And you have trusted us to know what to do best with that money. So that's probably the first thing that we were able to work on.
Okay.
But it's really just been methodically working through it.
Well, I want to take a moment right now, let Annabelle do her thing. She's hopefully talk about our website. And let me stop sharing here.
Sure. So I want to remind everybody that we will have all of the information from tonight will be up on our website. Most of it's there already, actually. We just don't have the recording, obviously, which we will put on tomorrow. But this is our Mid-Atlantic United Methodist Foundation website. Our URL is midatlanticfoundation.org. This is our homepage. And you can see we've got lots of information here, our education programs, the Financial Leadership Academy that Mary Kay has been so thoughtfully grateful for, that is still ongoing. And we've got information about that. And we've got, we had put up a program for emergency funding for people who are perhaps coming across a shortfall right now with the pandemic. Here's our investments tab. If you're a client, this would be where you would want to look to see what's going on, how we work our investments. The planned giving tab is a really good place to start to look for some of those templates that Mary Kay was talking about. If you go into the planned giving page and go down here to where it says legacy gifts, it actually takes you out to our planned giving website, which is run by a partner, which has a absolute myriad of information about planned giving. And for example, if you were to go into gift options, and let's see, if we were to go down here, what type of assets might we give? We could hit more here. How do I give stocks and bonds? And there will be some options here. Actually, on this one, oh, here you go, brochure. You click on brochure, and you'd be able to fill out some information, and you would be sent a brochure that then you could customize for your church to give people information about how they would donate stocks to your church. All kinds of information like that behind the planned giving tab. Take some time to look around there. It's really got a lot of resources. And then coming back to our page, under events, under archived events, you will find here is actually this workshop that you're on right now, and the presentation slides are available to you. And here are the letters that Mary Kay referred to, the 5 different letters that she sent out just last month, actually. And it shows you the different customization that she's made to her different givers. And then on our calendar, we'll have upcoming events too that you can look into. And all our contact information is here. Should you need to get in touch with us, we're all available, phone and email. We'd love to hear from you.
That's awesome. Mary Kay, you were going to jump in?
Oh, if you saw me, I was talking to, I have a cat at my feet who
Oh, okay, good. Very good. No, you did a tremendous job. Thank you so much. And we just appreciate your time and effort to do this. I know you're fitting us in between other things as our pastors and lay people are too. And we all want the same thing, to fund, have more resources for our churches to make more disciples. That's the bottom line. That's why we're here to do this. I appreciate, Annabelle, what you've done tonight. Mary Kay, you've done great. And those that we're on now, and those that are watching this in the future, we just appreciate you, and God be with you and help you, to give you the strength to do what you need to do. So that's what we're here for, and we want to help and make. We have templates, we have brochures, a lot of things to help make your life a little easier. That's what we want to do. So thank everybody for tonight.